Hey, this would be Monday, the last day of 7th grade, May 23rd, as we continue with more information. Yes, not Tuesday yet. Where did I leave off with you guys before?
Where you got arrested?
Emotional.
When you climb through your little opening.
The little opening. Cammy.
Are we gonna be able to bribe pretzels?
Yeah, after class.
Did you say bribe?
Say, oh, did you not pay attention when we talked before?
Oh, okay.
Only before and after class.
That was disgusting.
Yeah. So as I was 7 years old, so I'd gotten the part talking about the house.
Yep.
Yeah,
In fact, we were trying to get in, and I'd found the crawl space.
Yeah, then you stop.
And it was your worst fear, spider and...
Because I was a wussy. I was. Much better now. I'm only a half wussy. And so we found a little crawl space, and so we tried to get my younger brother to do it.
You cried.
Because that's what you do with younger siblings. And he would not. That's where he chose to counter-argument with crying, which was a solid counter-argument. And they came up with the idea of peer pressure, which was a solid move against me. And I buckled to the peer pressure like any good child does. And so from there, I decided to be the one that was going to crawl into this little crawl space. That's what I ended up doing. Went over the has a little half metal wall. I went over that, and the little window was pulled to the side. And I was able to little army crawl into it, my skinny little twig body. And it was everything I thought it would be. It was dark, and it reminded me of death. There was spider, like as soon as you guys were like, the spider just went across my face. I was like, ah! There might have been screaming involved. And I could see in the different directions, and it was all just like, darkness, darkness, wait, nope, darkness. Except like on the very far edges, you could see like where the sunlight was like coming through the edges of the house, or like this outside kind of a ring around there. And I was like, it's really dark down here. I don't see anything. And the older kid was like, well, go farther. And I was like, I don't like that idea. But once again, I was like, you're older. You know what you're talking about. So I went for it. And I got to the point where I was all the way in, and like my feet were just crossing the little areas, like whoop, and my feet had gone in there. When out of nowhere, beam of light comes down right in front of me in the middle of the darkness. Da, 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 like, and just shoots down. And I was like, I see light. And they're like, go to the light. And I'm like, I'm going to the light. Which means something. I know. What's that? You felt you're in the wrong seat? I can hook you up. And so I was trying to go towards the light as best I could and doing the little army crawl thing. And they were cheering me on. I was like, I'm going. And it was just beam of light shining down in the middle of the darkness. And I went for it, and I got to where the beam of light was coming down, and it turned out to be a hole in the flooring. Well, for me it was the ceiling, but for the house it was the flooring. Because everywhere else it was like pipes and little, I don't know what you call those, the pillar things the house sits on. And so those were everywhere, and then there's just a hole. And I was like, there's light coming through a hole. And they're like, go into the hole. I was like, okay. And so I remember I could stand up. I had to crawl into this little hole, and I could get my little skinny twig body up into it. And there was machinery all around me that was making noise. It was like this big square machine and this circular machine, and they were like generating a lot of heat, and it was scary. Looking back now, it was a utility closet. It was the furnace and then the water heater. And apparently the house was not well designed, because their utility closet had a hole in the floor where like a random raccoon or animal or small child could just like crawl into your house, which is what happened. And so I remember I got up between the two areas, and then I could go sideways between the water heater and the furnace. And I had like turned sideways and go, I was like, and I was able to go between the two of them. And then there was the door that led into the house, or into the closet. And it wasn't the normal door, like it has like a door handle, and it has like the hard flat thing. It was hinged in the middle, and it had slats, so you could see the little, like, into the thing. And so that was, what happened was, apparently sun had come through an upstairs window, and then had gone through the slats, through the hole, and it was like just a perfect alignment of sun and window and slats and hole that had led me there. If not, then I never would have gone that far, because I would have freaked out and turned around. But apparently he or she or turtle or whatever you believe in was up there, and he's like, come into the house. And I was like, okay. And so I went up there, and I pushed in the middle of the doors, and they snapped closed, like over the side, like a little accordion. And then there was house in front of me. I remember like stepping out, it's like, ah, 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 and like stepping out, and I could look to my left, and over here was the front door, and there were stairs that went up behind me, like above where the utility closet was. To my right was the kitchen, and there was a sliding glass door. And I remember like looking around, I was like, I'm inside. And then banging, turn over, look that way, and my younger brother and the fourth grader over there, like their faces smashed against the little sliding glass door. So I went over there and like opened it up and slid it open, and they came running in with like high five, like woo! We were all excited, so we ran around the house, and just like little crazy little monkeys, just went running around all over the place, chasing each other, having a good time. And we're there, I don't know, like a couple hours, just running around and playing, and things were fun until it was time to go home. We could tell because the little clock on like the microwave could tell us the time, and so we were like, all right, time to go home. And so we went ahead and slid the sliding glass door closed behind us, and then went out through the back gate, went and got our bikes. Excuse me again. Excuse me again. Apparently, lots of breaking and entering, getting all burpy. And so we went out the back and I got nothing. Onto our bikes, and then rode home. And did the same thing the next day, and the next day, for like several days in a row. We just would go out there, and we'd tell our parents, like, all right, we're going to go play. And we just, like, playing involved going straight to this house. Although we did get smart, we brought snacks with us. And so we'd, like, pack, like, a little picnic of, like, little juice bags and, like, fruit snacks and stuff like that, and some crackers. And, like, I remember, like, one point we even had, like, we brought bologna and cheese. And we're like, we're just going to eat. And we just, like, would sit there and, like, eat and just, like, leave crumbs all over the place, like Hansel and Gretel, like, in a single house. And so we were just all over the place running and playing and having a great time. Till one day it all changes. A couple days later, 4 or 5, we'd been there several days in a row. We were in the kitchen, hanging out, playing. I think we had like little Hot Wheels on the car because our parents always yelled at us. We like threw our Hot Wheels across the car or across the floor. And so in this place, we could take our Hot Wheels, like throw them as hard as we want, like and like hit them into the furniture. Like I don't care, because there's no one there to yell at us, which was the greatest thing. And so we're in there like rolling our Hot Wheels back and forth. When all of a sudden we heard the scariest sound I'd ever heard in my life up to that point, which was someone at the front door. And we could hear this whole jingle, 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 like at the front door. We heard like a voice out there. We all went, we got up and ran. Not out the back door, because that's what smart kids would do. We ran deeper into the house, because that's what stupid children do. Which is why, once again, whenever you see horror movies, and you're like, why would you do that? Because when you're scared, you do really stupid stuff. Like when there's a big opening to escape and you run the other way because you're dumb. And so we ran. So coming into the house, there were stairs right here, and a room over here, and another room here, and you could like go to those, or you could go straight to the kitchen, go out to the garage that way, or go this way to a dining room. And so you could run like in a circle, and we would chase each other. We were in the kitchen, heard the noise coming here, so we ran this way. And so we ran over to this little wall. It was like this. Remember, all three of us ran with our backs to the wall, and we could hear this door opening over here, and this person stomped, like set something down. It was like walking where the thing was, the closet was. And I remember like, why is this door open? Like, and like shut that door. Like, oh, we're gonna die. Because I was pretty sure legally he was allowed to kill us. Which was going through my head. I was like, oh, he's an ogre. We were caught in his house. Now he gets to eat us. That's just the way the law works. I remember him like stomping and going behind us. And all three of us, I was here, and my brother was on this side, and the fourth grader was over here. And we're like looking at each other like, oh, we're going to die. Like, oh, yeah, like not saying this, just with our eyes like, just like looking at each other. And we can hear him in the kitchen. And he is like 3 feet behind us, just like right there. And we know any moment he's going to find us. So we do what any kid would do in that situation. We scream and run. And just run to the front door. Myself, being an adult now, if I were in a house that I thought was empty, and all of a sudden as I was standing in the kitchen 3 feet away, I hear 3 things just start screaming, I would choose to wet myself and then pass out. Apparently that is not what this man chose to do. So we ran from there to our right to go to the front door. We thought that was the fastest way out. I remember running to the front door. Once again, the whole horror movie thing. I know when you see the people running from the monster and they get to the door and they can't open the door and you're like, what kind of idiot can't open a door? Doors are really hard to open when you're scared and trying not to pee yourself, which is what was going on in this particular case, because I was the first one to the door, and I was 7 years old. I've been opening doors for like 5 years. I'm like a door opening professional, and I remember like the door, I'm like, just, my hands were on it, I'm like, and they were like, ah, and I'm like, I know I'm dying, and the door would not open. Like I feel like I was there for like a year, like trying to open. Then finally, like the door, I'm like, oh, you twist the knob. Duh. And I'm like, when I twist the door, and I pulled open as hard as I could, and it hit my foot and slammed back shut again. Remember, like, it was that stumble, like, I'm like looking at my hand, like, there was a door, I'm like, it's still, I could not comprehend how door not open. And I'm like, wait, open door, step to side. They should write this down. And so I remember, like, then opening, and all three of us go running out. That probably took place in the course of 2 seconds. It felt like I'd been there and like turned like 2 birthdays the entire time. It was so long. And we all three go running out the front door. And then, like the genius children we are, we make a beeline straight for our houses. The 4th grader goes out to the right because his house is 4 houses down that way. And we go out to the left because our house is 5 houses down that way. And so my brother and I both go whoop, whoop, and go running out. My younger brother, who was 2 years younger than me and much rounder than I was, decided to stay on the safer ground of the sidewalk. So he ran all the way down to the sidewalk and then took a left. Then his little round body was running down that way. He eventually got much thinner and taller and better looking than me, so I can make fun of him now because it's funny. And so I went out and went to the left. And so my little twiggy stick body took off running that way. And I remember thinking at the time it was the fastest I think any human had ever ran. Because I remember just seeing like a tree, and like bush, tree, house. I'm like, oh, like it's so fast. I'm like, oh, Flash is going to cry himself to sleep. Because it was just so quick. And I figured like there's no way this guy's going to catch us. And from behind me, front door opens, and this guy comes jumping. He's like it felt like the ogre coming down. I was like, ah! I'm like turning around, like seeing like, ah! And he turned, and he had to pick 3 people to chase after, and he picks me, because lucky. And then he takes off running. I remember like turning like, oh no! And I'm just like, oh, I'm running so fast, and like looking back, I'm like, he's closer. I'm like, he's coming after me. Looking back in my head now, I don't think I made it out of his yard. I think in my head I was running fast. I think he just like came out. I was like, "Where's that?" And like just like grabbed me. But I'm like, "I'm going so fast," because my imagination was strong and my feet were not fast. I remember him reaching out and like the hand coming down on my shoulder, like and doing the whole, and then coming back as he grabbed onto me and making some kind of little sound. And my brother, who is running along to my right, him turning around to look at me, and like he and I made that brother eye contact thing. And I was like, keep going. He's like, I'm not stopping. And then he just, no words, like all in our eyes. Like, and he's like, oh no. And then he just kept on going. And the guy turned me around, and I was pretty sure here's where he was going to eat me. And he tells me, and he was like, who are you? To which I replied, ah! And he was like, why are you in my house? Which I followed with, I don't want to die. And so he kept asking me questions. Well, all I would do is either cry or talk about not dying, which I'm sure was kind of confusing. And he takes me and drags me back into his house. Which, once again, looking back on this as an adult, I don't know how this does not get reported to the police, where a man has 3 small children burst out of his house screaming. He grabs one and drags a screaming child back into the house, and the neighbor's like, nah, it's a Tuesday. And I'm just like, nowadays, that'd be kind of weird. Drags me back in. I remember he opens up the front door and sets me on the stairs and like tries to interrogate me, but all I keep doing is like crying and talking about death. So I remember him calling the police on the phone, like doo 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 doo, and calls the police, and I'm just sitting there crying. And I do remember he had the stairs. It had the little poles like that go up like on little steps. And I remember like wrapping my arms around the little poles and like and I just like holding on to those. So I'm like, if you're gonna kill me, I'm taking all these things with me. And then he just sort of like left me there while he walked around the house, like grumbling and like ogre talk or something. Until eventually there was a knock on the door, and then the door opened, and he goes over and opens the door, and there's 2 police officers. I remember there's 2 of them. They're like, we're here, you had a report about breaking and entering? He was like, yeah. He was like, he's right there. I remember being there, like, looking up at the police officers, and them, like, looking in and seeing me, leaning back, looking at each other, looking back and seeing me, like, behind the small child. He was like, no, it is the small child. I'm like, yeah, this guy, criminal. And so they came and were like, son, is this your house? I'm like, no. They're like, were you in here? I was. And so they couldn't put handcuffs on me because my little twiggy wrist, like, it would just fall right off. So instead, they just sort of like put their hands on my shoulders and like, you have to come with us. And so they took me out to the car. And I think I even asked them, are you going to kill me? They're like, what? Like, no, we don't do that anymore. And so like and they took me out to the car and I had to sit in the back seat and they drove me home. They're like, where's your house? I'm like, oh, that one, you can see it, that's my backyard. And so they drove me like, it was like, vroom, vroom, and I just drove in like right there. And I remember like walking up to my front door, which is 33 years later, I still remember walking up to that front door with the 2 police officers behind me, and them ringing my doorbell, and my mom coming to the door and like looking out and seeing me, and just being so small and feeling awful. And she was like, honey? And like, we picked up your son. He was breaking and entering into your neighbor's house. And her just like, I was like, David. That's my nickname. And she was like, and I was like, guilty, but they didn't eat me. And so they took me inside and found out they had to find my brother because being a good criminal, I ratted everybody out as quickly as I could. And I was like, the 4th grader, he lives in that house, and my brother, he lives with me in this house. And they found my brother, who did what any good kid does when being attacked by a monster. He hid under his bed. And so they had to go upstairs and like drag him. I was like, ah! And they drug him out and brought him downstairs. And they went down to the 4th grader's house and brought him and his mom and dad down. And so all of us sat in my family room. And I remember we were on these really ugly brown couches that we used to have. I remember we sat there on these couches and we had like a whole police officer discussion about the fact that what we were doing was illegal. Apparently we had stolen stuff also. The 4th grader had at least had taken like just some tools and some magazines and stuff like that. And they had stolen some stuff, and like, you could go to jail for this if you were any older. And I'm like, oh, I'm never going to break and enter again. And I never did break and enter again. I broke the law in other ways. And so it made a big impression on me. And so it was frightening and scary. And I was dumb, but I don't really feel like it was that bad because I wasn't trying to break the law. I was just trying to play inside a house. And I really thought the house was abandoned. I didn't know I was doing something wrong. And it kept me from breaking the law for like 7 years, which was good. That was as long as I'd gone beforehand. So I was like, I'm done with the time. And I didn't get arrested again until I was 14. And my 14-year-old one, I was bad. There is no trying to make it sound better than what it was. I knew I was making poor choices, and I did it anyway. And what it was my 8th grade year, about halfway through, I'd started hanging out with some kids who were shoplifting and were stealing stuff from stores. And I'd heard them tell stories in class, and I was like, you guys are idiots, and you're doing it, and I'm a genius, so if you can do it, I can definitely do it. And so I decided to start shoplifting, so I did. And so I started shoplifting my 8th grade year. Now given, I was still a dork, so what I shoplifted, it doesn't make it better, because stealing is stealing, but what I shoplifted was comic books and candy. And that was it. I just things to read and sugar, and that was it. Whereas the kids I was hanging out with, they would shoplift things from stores like CD players, and they'd go and sell them to other kids. And so they were using it as like a money making thing. I'm like, you guys are criminals. And I'm like, I just want some sugar. And so I became really good at it. Not to brag, it was just one of those things where I committed, and I stole a lot of candy. I stole more candy than I could eat. I would steal candy than just give it away to kids at school. Because one, I thought it made me cool. It didn't. But I would just take it, and I'd come in the next day, I'm like, a candy bar for you, and for you, and for you, and for you. And I just like throw out candy to other kids. And I would do the same thing with the comic books I all kept. But then I would even steal in front of police officers. That was my favorite, is if there was a police officer in the store, that was when I would go and steal, because I figured they would never suspect you, because what idiot steals with the cop right there? This idiot. And so I would wait till the cops were in there, and that's when I would go and do it. Ethan?
How much money stuff do you think you use?
I remember they were like 50 cents a piece, probably $100 or $200 worth of candy over the time.
What?
I don't know. I wasn't keeping track. I was just giving it away.
$400.
And so over the summer from 8th grade to high school, I continued. It got even worse and worse. And still just the candy and the comic books. And it got to my freshman year, and I was on the wrestling team my freshman year, and I loved wrestling. And it was about early October, which is in the middle of wrestling season. And I had seen a kid in the hallway earlier in the day using Banaka breath spray. Banaka breath spray is the stuff that you see like in the TVs and movies when the guy wants to look cool, he's like, shh, and like spray, just put it on my desk every done. He like sprays the breath spray into his mouth. You can have your seat back now, she's not using it. Then he went and macked on the ladies. Like he'd do the breath spray and like would talk to the girls and like, oh, you're so cute and handsome. And I was like, if I had breath spray, the chicks would dig me too. No, that's not the way it works. But I decided I was also going to get breath spray. And so that day after school, we had a wrestling meeting. And in Noblesville, which is where I went, where the high school is, right across the parking lot, there was a shopping center. They had a McDonald's in it, and a grocery store, and a drugstore, and like a barber and stuff like that. And so after school, there was like 20 of us wrestlers. We were like, be back by 4:30 for the bus. Here, you have to like stay in the coach's room or go home. But then they're just like, don't get in trouble. And they would just like kick you out. Like, yeah, we're not going to get in trouble. 20 wrestlers in the same place, you're getting in trouble. And so we went over to McDonald's and made poor choices there and acted like idiots. And then went over to the drugstore that was right there. Because we're going to get food and stuff like that. I was trying to make weight for wrestling. So I did not shoplift any candy that day. Because I was like, I can't steal anything right now because I'm not trying to. But I remember a bunch of my friends I was with were. I had one kid who had a jacket that was like a big puffy winter jacket, and he had the sleeves were like the elastic sleeves, so were tight, and he would just go and like take the cane like boom and just throw them down his sleeves, pew pew pew. So he'd walk out like a snowman, like these big old puffy, like if he moved around, it was like crinkle 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 crinkle, and so he would just like walk out like his arms like this the whole time. And so remember he was in there doing that, and I was like, yeah, I'm not taking anything today. Hanging out with my hoodlum friends. And I remember walking around trying to find the Banaka, which I'm going to go ahead and grab it. I had a kid buy Banaka breath spray to taunt me afterwards because kids are mean. Actually, she thought it was funny. But this is what it looks like. It's like a little Banaka breath spray. And so it has like a little, and you spray it in your mouth, but it comes in a package just like this. Ooh, package. So it has like the plastic on it and the little the paper backing. And I found the Banaka breath spray, and so I remember, no kidding, I just saw it. Paige Dorsal, I just saw her at Meyer yesterday. I said hi to her. What a small world. And so I got the packaging, and I was walking down the aisles. I was like, trying to find the right place to steal it, and I remember going all the way down to the last aisle of the store, which was the medicine aisle. And I took it, and I just went, and I ripped it open, and took the breath spray out, put it in my pocket, and I just took the packaging, and just like balled it up and then put it on just like in a random spot on one of the shelves. And then just kept walking and turned down and talked to a couple friends. And I was like, all right, I'm going to go ahead and take off. And so I was leaving and going out to, let me see, walking out, there was the checkout counter. I had 3 friends who were there and they were paying for their stuff. And I was like, hey, talk to you guys later. And then turned left. And this particular one, the drugstore, had double doors. So it had like one set of doors you go through, and it had like a little airlock. I don't know what you want to call those things. It had like a little glassed-in area, and then like another area which you go through. And so you had to like go through both of them in order to exit the drugstore. And it was they were not automatic ones. You had to like push the doors open. I remember I got to the first one and pushed the door open, then you had to turn to the right. So I pushed this one open, and it turned to the right and was going, and I had just grabbed the door to leave, and my hand was on the door when I felt a hand come down on my shoulder. And he's like, where do you think you're going? In this deep voice. And when you know you're doing something wrong and you have that happen, it's that stomach dropping, wanting to poop yourself kind of feeling, which is what I had. And a lot of things went through my head at that moment. One of the first ones was, I'm a wrestler, which means I'm stronger than this guy and faster than this guy. I don't think he can catch me if I make a run for it. And my hand's on the door handle. And I'm thinking, from where he has his hand, Coach has taught us how to get that hand off. and then I can open that door, and with the proper spin technique, I'm going to be out that door and running before this guy has a chance to catch up to me. And so I'm planning in my head how to duck, spin, pull the door, and then run, and while this guy just like, oh man, and I just stand there watching the whole thing happen, planning this thing out in my head, when I have another thought follow up, which is, there's 20 of my wrestling friends in the store behind me. All he has to do is ask any one of them, and they'll probably rat me out because kids are horrible. Which means they're going to come and arrest me either at wrestling today, or they're going to wait till tomorrow morning when I'm in class. So which would be better, to be arrested right here, or to be arrested at school? And so I was trying to figure that out. And I realized it'd probably be better to have it happen now than in front of like my classmates. And so I did one of the toughest things I've ever done, which was let go of the door handle. And I remember looking out, and it was a sunny day, and I could see outside and that glass door, and just going, and releasing my hand, and knowing releasing my hand meant that there was all kinds of bad stuff getting ready to happen to me. And then the guy turned me around, and it was the pharmacist wearing like the long white jacket coat thing. I still remember it to this day. An older fella, and he was like, "So you're gonna pay for that?" To which I replied, "For what?" And he was like, "Son, you put it in your coat." And I said, "What are you talking about?" And all smiley. I'm like, "I don't know what's going on." To which he replies, he pulls out the packaging, which I had crumpled up and shoved onto a shelf. And he holds it up. He goes, "The Banaka breath spray." And I go, "I don't know." So he goes, "Well, would you like to go ahead and come with me now, or should we go ahead and show you the video?" And I went, and just all the air came out of me, and I was like, okay. And he goes, "Now," and I remember I reached into my pocket, and I held it out to him, and he grabbed it, and I thought for a second, this is where he lets me go, and I learned my lesson, and everything is better. But that's not what happened. He leads me through the store, and he walks me through the store with his hand on my shoulder, past my 3 friends who were there at the checkout counter. I remember the checkout lady like sitting there staring at me, and then leads me through the store where all my other friends were. I remember like coming out of the aisles like to look at me as I was walked by, and I only looked up for just a moment to do the whole look this way, and like, yeah, I don't want to see any of you guys looking at me. So I'm like, I'm going to choose just to look down at the floor the entire time, because if I don't see you, you don't exist. And he led me through the store to the back swinging doors. Those little so he led me through those little back swinging doors. And when we got to the back swinging doors, it was our back like storage area. I remember him grabbing a chair, which is at a little desk. He put down the packaging that I had stolen, and put it down on the desk, and grabbed this chair and like dragged it. I was like, and he drags it from the desk out to the middle of the floor, and then like sets it down real hard. He's like, "Sit down!" I'm like, "Okay." I like sat down in the chair. And